This is rare footage of Thomas Matthew Crooks sitting in the classroom. Sadly, it's just a typical day in school for him to get pestered like this, to be teased for how his body smells.
He was bullied almost every day. I mean, he would sit alone at lunch. I mean, he was just an outcast, and you know how kids are nowadays, so...
To be mocked for the way he dressed, first in wide-legged jeans and SpongeBob t-shirts, until he transitioned to his camouflage and hunting outfits. But what his classmate doesn't know right in this moment is that this awkward, intelligent kid they're teasing will soon be a dark part of history.
Take a look at what happened.
Nobody had any idea that this invisible kid, whose only record of bad behavior was getting sent to detention for chewing gum, who rarely missed a day of school, who once even created a thoughtful project, a chess set made with Braille for blind players, would attempt to assassinate Donald Trump. These are the final hours of Thomas Matthew Crooks, the Republican kid who became Trump's assassin. And sadly, the more you try to understand what was going inside his head, the more it could confuse you. It's 2022, and Thomas graduated at Bethel Park High School with a National Math and Science Initiative Star Award.
Thomas Crooks.
Around this time, he has the reputation of a kid who loves math, likes computers, and plays video games on weekends. In his own testimonial, he even said, "I've always had an interest in building things. In 2017, my dad and I built our first PC." Thomas definitely seemed like a smart boy with a lot of potential to build great things. So what suddenly happened that he decided to just throw that all away? After getting an associate's degree in engineering science, he finds himself here at a suburban nursing home, serving meals and washing dishes for $16 an hour. Thomas still doesn't change his behavior. Like, in school, he eats lunch alone and rarely speaks to anyone.
I had a boy walking around the neighborhood a lot by himself, just looked normal, just kind of nerdy. Yeah.
But for a kid who stays polite, who performs his job without concern, and whose background check is spotless, what was there to complain about? Especially when you learn that both of his parents are licensed professional counselors. So we can only imagine the shock and devastation these parents must have felt once they learned that their own son attempted to kill Donald Trump, and that it was his father's gun that Thomas committed his crime with. July 12, 2024, Friday. A day before Trump's rally, Thomas visits the gun range and spends most of the day practicing his shooting. With every shot that rings out, Thomas likely recalls how he was rejected from that rifle team he wanted to join as a sophomore. They called him a bad shot for not shooting well enough, and now he's out to prove them wrong. Around this point, Thomas had already told his bosses he needed to take a day off on Saturday because he had something to do. They just didn't know that leading up to this moment, Thomas had already been ordering hazardous packages. They didn't know that he was also Googling the most suspicious things on his phone. Researching mass high school shooter Ethan Crumbley, who killed 4 students at the age of 15. Looking up the dates of Trump's events, and even saving the photos of Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and FBI Director Christopher Wray. July 13, 2024, Saturday. Thomas asks his father if he could borrow his rifle, saying he planned to go to a shooting range that day. At 9:30 a.m., Thomas heads to Home Depot to buy a 5-foot ladder, and later in the afternoon, he goes to a local gun shop to also purchase 50 rounds of ammunition. Driving a Hyundai Sonata, Thomas heads to the rally site, which happens to be just an hour drive away from his hometown. Hours before the shooting, Thomas is even believed to have flown a drone over the rally grounds to study how to successfully carry out his twisted plan.
He was about 148 yards away from the rally location and where the stage was.
At 5:06 p.m., about an hour before Trump took the stage, Thomas is caught on camera pacing around the building just outside the security area.
Thomas Crooks pacing back and forth just beyond the boundaries of the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania.
So rally goers report him as a suspicious person, but as police starts to approach him, Thomas fades into the crowd. Now, knowing he's no longer invisible, he quickly climbs on top of an air conditioning unit, a place where he is believed to have also hidden his rifle. He then pulls himself up the roof, working his way toward another taller building, which gave him the vantage point to fire in Trump's direction.
We noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof.
6:05 p.m. Trump walks onto the stage to the cheers of his supporters. 6:09 p.m. Regular people once again notice Thomas on the roof.
Right there, see him? He's laying down, see him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
Yeah, look, there he is.
Because we have millions and millions of people in our country.
And one of the counter snipers turns to face the building where he was. Soon, just 30 seconds before the shooting, an officer tries to reach Crooks, and 5 seconds before the first shot, people panic and yell.
He's going down!
But it was too late. Because at 6:11 p.m. gunfire erupts and Trump's right ear is hit. A total miracle, because Trump could have been dead by now if he just moved his head a few millimeters slightly to the other side.
Take a look what happened.
Within the same minute, 2 more shots were fired, followed by several more after. In the end, it took a total of 26 seconds from the first shot until at 6:12 p.m. the outsmarted Secret Service finally takes 20-year-old Thomas down, who died wearing a shirt sold by a YouTube channel that talks about guns.
This channel was never meant to incite violence or hate. It never has, it isn't, and it never will be a channel that does that.
11 p.m. Thomas's father reports him missing, very worried as he was told by his son he would be back from the shooting range as early as 1 p.m. But FBI identifies the shooter to be indeed his son, Thomas Matthew Crooks. And now, all his promising life was reduced to a tragic, heartbreaking photo that no parent would ever wish on their worst enemy.
After a few minutes of waiting, the assassin's dad came to the door. He was clearly trying to hide his face from the media.
After Thomas got killed, investigators recover in his pocket a remote detonator that may have been intended to set off explosives in his car and in his home.
And these pictures of the items found on the roof, including a black cell phone and a gray wireless transmitter authorities say he intended to use to remotely detonate explosives in his car.
It makes you think about how much more destructive and lethal this event could have been.
But right up to this moment, there is one thing that law enforcement authorities still struggle to find: his motive for the attempted assassination. And by the way, before we continue digging into his motive, if you enjoy what we do, I have 2 requests. Request number 1, please subscribe to Project Nightfall. And request number 2, please subscribe to After Nightfall, our new channel where we cover darker stories. So if you're into that, I will see you there. Now back to the question on the motive. Thomas Matthew Crooks showed no strong political ideology. While most attackers usually leave traces of their rage right before their crime, Thomas showed no strong political ideology. In fact, his history would even confuse you. He's a registered Republican, yet he also once donated $15 to the Democratic Party. And voting records show that his mother is a Democrat, while his father and older sister are libertarians. Thomas had almost no presence on social media. He also had no traces of extreme behavior online. Except for one video. There's one video recovered by TMZ where he's recorded joking about his manhood, like any regular immature teenage boy.
I go to Stanford University. I have a 10-inch and...
Perhaps the closest we've got to an evidence is the fact that among his suspicious Google searches is the term major depressive disorder. Which makes me ask, how possible is it that Thomas felt so invisible he somehow thought that killing someone so visible would at least finally make people see him?
Could be, he was just out for fame.
Well, now that he's forever gone, it's very likely we will never truly know it. But Nightfam, if there's anything at all that the tragic story of Thomas Matthew Crooks teaches us, it is this one devastating truth. The future criminals of society can come from the familiar faces we see every single day.
It was shocking because, it's shocking to hear someone from your high school, that you knew of, would do something as tragic as that.
And while we can never control the demons they battle in their heads, we can at least make sure we're never the ones who will make them stop believing in the future.